Hey there everyone, sorry again for the long interval between videos, but my laptop had to be sent in for repairs, so I didn't have access to a webcam for some time. But I'm back, and this is part 3 of my story, where I intend to talk about the relationships I have with my friends and my family before, during and after anorexia. So yeah, let's talk about what it was like before anorexia. With my family, when I was, before the age of 10, the relationships in the family were actually relatively normal. My mum was a very caring mother. She'd do night duty, which would mean that, she'd sleep throughout the day. But when she was around, she was great. She was a great mum. My dad, on the other hand, he was very much a workaholic, and he was in the steel trading business, which meant that, he would have to go to Turkey for weeks at a time, and as such, I didn't really see much of him. And looking back on my past, I do sort of see an absence of a father figure when I was around that young, and I don't know if that had a role to play in anything that went on subsequent to that, but it may have done. My sister, before anorexia, it's the normal family dynamics between a brother and a sister. You hate each other, but you love each other. You get into fights, but it's only petty, and it will last for maybe an hour before you're, having fun again. So in that sense, it was completely normal. Around the time when I was 10, my brother was also born, called Daniel. So before anorexia actually developed, he was still very young. He must have been maybe 3, 4, and as such, he was still that crying, crazy little boy that I can remember. So the relationship with him was typical to that of a younger sibling. There wasn't really anything wrong there. However, as I've mentioned in a previous video, I feel one of the causative factors of me developing an eating disorder was the hostility that happened at home around the time when I was 13, 14. So, my mum and dad didn't really get along very well around that time, and there was always this constant bickering, arguing, and then sometimes we'd get thrown into into these arguments, and it just made me feel really, uncomfortable being at home, and as such, I really did try to get out of the house as much as possible. So this meant that I would go to friends' houses, I would, try and go out with my friends, and occasionally I would just go to the park on my own for a walk with my dog. Just anything to get out of that house. It was far too hostile for me to be happy in. Around that time I became very close to my auntie and uncle, who live in Sheffield, which is in the Midlands of England. You can sort of see this transition from dad, mum to auntie, uncle, as I was beginning to develop anorexia. And because there was so much hostility at the house, they weren't really paying attention to me slowly, losing weight, not eating. And as such, my auntie and uncle played a very active role in trying to, basically have a voice in trying to direct my treatment. A very strong memory that I have was at a boat show in London where my auntie and uncle took me, and we were trying to get lunch, but this was around February of 2007, which was a month before I was admitted to Rhodes Farm. And they got me lunch. I said I just want a jacket potato with beans, and no butter. So my auntie was coming back with it. I was walking alongside her because I was so paranoid that she'd try and put butter on it or put something else on it that I couldn't let it out of my sight. To the point where she turned around seeing a boat that, she really liked. And I was convinced that she was doing something behind my back and I didn't eat the lunch. And it was around that time where she sat me down, had a very stern conversation with me that actually really did help. And when I was eventually admitted, I was very thankful for the role that she played. When I was in the inpatient unit, my dad began to change his attitude towards me in general. So he was still going to Turkey quite a lot, but not as often, and he really did try to make an effort to talk to me as a father would to a son. And as such, when I was recovering from anorexia, my relationship with my father became significantly stronger. My mother, on the other hand, I think that, well, utterly convinced that she had postpartum depression after my brother was born. And when I developed anorexia, I think that just set it off. And she became an alcoholic, which I'm still convinced that she is now. So yeah, the relationship with my mum began to deteriorate, which, it's a complete role reversal. My sister as well. When I was in the inpatient unit, my sister, like my dad, they didn't really understand what mental health is about, and they were like, well, why isn't he eating? He just put some food in front of him, he should eat. And as such, she became, quite annoying to me. And so I just stopped talking to her. And it's only within the past year that I've actually sort of said, okay, let's move on, and I'm beginning to talk to my sister again. My brother, on the other hand, he was quite clueless at the time, but he was very, sympathetic, like a little boy is. And when he came on family visits, he was always the one, cracking the jokes. Not because he felt that he had to lighten the mood, but because he wanted to make me feel better. And as such, I still have a very strong love for my brother. Now in terms of my friends, before I was admitted, I only had maybe 3 good friends that I was, happy to be around because they understood who I was. And because I was bullied at school, I didn't really have that many friends. There was only about 20 people in my year to choose from. However, when I was in the inpatient unit, my year sort of came together as a group, and I remember a couple of my friends came to me during a visit and said, look, we've come together and we've bought you a few DVDs and a few models for you to be getting on with to pass the time while you're in the inpatient unit. And that meant a whole lot to me, and to know that people actually cared about me outside of the clinic actually drove me forward in my treatment. So yeah, a big thanks to them, definitely. I'm still in contact with these people, even after anorexia, and I feel that actually being anorexic strengthened my friendship with them more than I could have ever hoped. Now, after anorexia, my dad and I are still, we're still great friends, and I feel that I can definitely open up to him a heck of a lot more than I could have done before I was admitted to Rhodes Farm. And this is because, it was a life-death situation with me, and it took, me being in a crisis to realize that he needed to really buckle down and be the father that, he is now. And I'm so thankful for that. My mum, on the other hand, I think she is depressed. She's diagnosed with depression. She's still an alcoholic, which I'm trying to work out. But what can you do? The roles have reversed. She was initially caring for me. Now I'm trying to care for her. My sister, we're still great. And my brother, he's 11 now. So he's into football, he's into rugby, on the Xbox all the time, like, any other 11-year-old is nowadays. So yeah, it's quite typical in that sense. And in terms of my friends, ever since I came out on the internet saying that I was anorexic, I feel that my relationships with my friends, especially at uni, has gotten stronger. Because it explained a lot about how I dealt with, social situations. I was always quite awkward because, I sort of missed out on 2 years of my life where I should have actually been developing quite a lot of social skills in that sort of teen area. And as such, when I actually said, I was anorexic and I'm actually trying to help people now, they became a heck of a lot more sympathetic. And now I feel that I've sort of moved forward leaps and bounds in terms of my social development. So yeah, I'm massively thankful for that. So yeah, that's the end of this video. I thought it was quite a vague concept to try and get across to you guys, but if you can relate to it, please let me know, and I can probably try and talk about certain aspects of it a bit more in a question and answer session, which I'll also be releasing concurrent to this video. Thank you very much, and I'll see you later.